Next on our agenda, for those of you who are watching, will come nothing close to what we were just treated to. This is the fiscal year 2015 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and Auditors Report.
I don't know, I find this very exciting.
I do too. Yes. There are some of us that actually do find this interesting. For the rest of you, good night. Mr. Crutchfield.
So I can't believe it's a year already for the audit to be presented. So just like in the past, I'm going to go through the financial highlights before I turn it over to Dave Gannon, the district's independent auditor. So the FY2015 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. As in the past, the main parts of the CAFRA, the audit report, is comprised of 4 funds: the General Fund, Special Revenue Fund, Capital Projects Fund, and the Debt Service Fund. The General Fund captures the day-to-day operations. In the 2014-15 year, we had expenditures just over $147 million. At the end of the year, our fund balance was almost $23 million. It was comprised of $6.3 million in the capital reserve, $4.8 million in reserve for encumbrances. That's open purchase orders at the end of the year. The majority of those open purchase orders related to capital outlay projects that were being funded through the general operating fund. Oops, sorry, too fast. Almost $3 million for the required fund balance, often referred to as the 2%. $4.3 million was applied to the 2015 year as budgeted fund balance or tax relief, and another $2.3 million is being used in the current year, the 2016 year, as budgeted fund balance. Next is the Special Revenue Fund. Special Revenue Fund is the grant fund. It houses federal, state, and local grants that are restricted or committed to specific purposes. The EBEF grants, the PTA grants, No Child Left Behind, IDEA. The major grant awards in 2015, just under $2 million for IDEA. That was an increase of $52,000 from the prior year. NCLB, which is Title I, Title II, Title III, was $806,000. That was a significant increase over 2014 of over $300,000. That's due to the population and the funding formula that the federal government uses. We went up a tier. EBF grants, almost $100,000. PTA, $52,000. And then the Adult Basic Education Grant of $150,000. We had total expenditures of $8.6 million. EBF grants spent $95,000, PTA $37,000, federal almost $2.8 million, state $262,000, other almost $5.5 million. The other are lease purchase, construction, purchase of vehicles, everything funded through lease purchases that are not ROD grant related, is housed in the Special Revenue Fund, and that comprised almost $5.5 million. Capital projects, that's where construction's done. It's used to account for and report financial resources that are restricted, committed, or assigned to expenditures for capital outlays, including the acquisition or construction of capital facilities and other capital assets. And that doesn't compare to the students that were just here. I mean, I know Kurt's excited. Total expenditures of just under $3 million. Those expenditures related to the various security projects, the frost roof, HVAC, and electrical upgrades at Chittick and Irwin. Again, you probably remember in the past year, all the ROD grants that we got, those are all the projects that were ROD grant eligible, and they're being funded out of the Capital Projects Fund. Debt service. used to account and report for the resources restricted, committed, and assigned to expenditures for principals and interest. Often referred to at the board meetings as like your mortgage, similar to a mortgage for a house. It's where we have bonds, very specific lease purchases with the township that we pay back through the debt service fund. Balance at the end of the year, we had bonds payable of almost $83.5 million. They were comprised of three major issues. The 2005 issue, $62.8 million. That was the Hammersholt Central and Lawrence Brook construction. 2007, $7.1 million. That was the Churchill refunding bond. And then the 2010 issue of 13.4, that was the Memorial School. We also have capital leases payable of just over $11 million. We have a debt limit that's established by statute. It's 4% of the average equalized value. Our current debt limit is $287 million. As the previous slide said, we have bonds of almost $83.5 million, represents just over 29% of the debt limit. So we're nowhere close to the maximum amount of debt that we could have. The leftover, the margin, is $203 million, or almost 70.1% of that debt limit. Enterprise fund, child nutrition, as I discussed last board meeting, we had total operating revenues of $1.9 million, non-operating revenue, which is comprised of the subsidy reimbursement from the federal and state governments for free and reduced lunch and paid lunch of almost $800,000. Total operating expenses of $2.7 million, resulting in a net loss of almost $24 million. I'm sorry, 24,000, thank you. I was saying million way too many times. We had total meals served last year of between lunch and breakfast of over 550,000. Our other enterprise fund is community programs. Total operating revenue of 2.9, almost $3 million, which is an increase over the prior year. Community programs is comprised of several sub-programs. Early morning program, $590,000. After school program, $1.2, $1,258,000. The JM PAC, just over $500,000. The Early Learning Academy, $519,000. And then other, which is the camps, after-school enrichments, the PSAT prep courses of over $100,000. All those categories increased in revenue over the prior year, except for other, which was slightly down, I think, by about $6,000 over the prior year. We had operating expenses in that fund of $2.1 million, a change in net position of $400,000. Now, the math doesn't work. You say, okay, we brought in 2.9, we spent 2.1, that should be $800,000. There was a $400,000 contribution from the community programs fund to the operating fund, which we've done on a consistent basis. Financial facts. We had total cash inflows of over $270 million, outflows of $266 million, ending cash on hand $33.6 million. The district manages over 25 bank accounts. That includes student activity funds and the athletic account, plus the major bank accounts for the district. We maintain compliance with all quarterly tax filings and the various requirements. Issue approximately 2,100 W-2s and 1099 forms, process over 800 journal entries a year, process over 3,900 club and activity registrations, 1,600 athletic and band registrations, 1,100 before and after school program registrations, over 1,000 after school enrichment program registrations. Along with those registrations, we also collect money for a lot of those programs on a monthly basis. So it's a major undertaking. We issued over 6,000 purchase orders 18,500 invoices were processed, over 5,000 accounts payable checks were issued, over 37,000 paychecks, including direct deposits and live checks. Over 12,000 timesheets were processed, over 10,000 attendance slips were processed. We issued bids, renewals, requests for proposals, requests for formal quotes, student service providers. So that is a very large package that is compiled and then turned over to the auditor for audit. Before I turn it over to Dave, I just want to say, thank you to Tara Rosenfink. She's the senior manager of accounting, and my whole staff in the finance department, and the staff throughout the district. I mean, HR gets audited by the auditor. They have compliance things. It is a huge operation and a huge task for the auditor to go through, and something that I think we are very proud of, that our records are in really good shape.
And it's required, right?
It is absolutely required to be audited by an independent auditor every year, and there's nothing more that Tara and I enjoy than the 6 weeks of the auditor being here.
Thank you, Mr. Crutchfield. Mr. Gannon, welcome.
Good evening. I don't know about you, but I found the finance facts very interesting, Joe. So with that being said, Joe is right. It's the audit can be very intensive and time consuming. As auditors, we always appreciate when district personnel have a good attitude towards the audit, are professional, provide information on a very timely basis. What I would tell you is you can be very proud of your employees because they do take it very seriously. And as Joe mentioned, we don't just audit the business office, we do audit, departments throughout the district. Our main interactions with the business office, and they act as the liaison to a number of departments. And a number of you, if you imagine you go to work every day and all of a sudden there's 3 to 4 extra people sitting in your office being very demanding, asking for information, and sometimes asking for it twice, unfortunately, it can wear on you, and you have to do that in addition to your regular job responsibilities. So I do always like to recognize the fact that the district personnel is very cooperative, and specifically in the business office, you have individuals that are very serious about their responsibilities and the fiduciary duty, and very cognizant of really looking at information very closely, and really doing a great job. So with that, we have certain objectives during our audit. The first objective is to provide an opinion on your financial statements to ensure that those financial statements hopefully are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Second objective is called a report that we provide on internal control over financial reporting. It's not a report in which we provide an opinion on. It is a report in which we would, if we found findings that were so significant, what's termed a material weakness or a significant deficiency, that would be our opportunity to provide to you, those charged with governance, an explanation of what those kind of findings were. Third objective is to provide an opinion on the district's federal and state grant programs. Because the district does receive a substantial amount of funding through federal and state sources, it is a requirement to also do a separate audit outside of the financial statements, specifically towards your federal and state grant programs. And also listed on that slide are certain standards and circulars that we have to conduct our audit in accordance with. And I'll get to the results of all those reports in later slides. The end result that many of you see is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is this book. There's several sections of that report, and they're tabbed. The first section is the introductory section. For those that are not as into the numbers and financial data and really want to get a good understanding of what's going on locally, that introduction section provides an excellent place and a lot of data that provides you and citizens what's going on in East Brunswick Public Schools. What are the accomplishments? The district and administration goes through, take a lot of time to put together all these accomplishments that have happened during the year. And most of them are non-financial in nature. One item that I'd like to just, congratulate the district on is receiving for the end of the second year in a row is the ASBO International Survey of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And again, not many school districts in the state actually get awarded that certificate. You're probably one of 25 districts in New Jersey that have gotten that, and it's the second year in a row. And really what it is, it's holding yourself to a higher standard, holding your financial data to a higher standard, making sure that, taking more time to make sure your disclosures are correct. The statistical data that you provide is extensive, and really taking a lot of time in the introduction section to provide that, really good scope of information of what's going on in the community. The second section is the financial section. It leads off with management discussion and analysis. A lot of the data that's provided in the CAFR is really of a one-year nature. That management discussion analysis gives you a little more flavor as to how things changed from year to year. It also provides our independent auditors report, as well as extensive amount of financial information that deals with the current year operations of the district. The third section is the statistical section. That provides a lot of historical data, gives you a lot of context. A lot of the schedules provide 10 years worth of data. So it really gives you good information as to, this is what we spent on instruction or transportation or special education, 10 years ago. What are we spending on it now, and how that may have changed over the years. The last section is the single audit section. That again provides our opinion on the district's compliance with those federal and state grants. It lists out the grants that we considered as major programs that we tested. So what were the results? So the results of the audit, the independent auditor's report that we provided, we've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, and that means that your financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We didn't have to take any exceptions to anything that was reported. And one of the things that the districts has been very good at is really doing an excellent job of preparing their internal financial statements, which is really important. And it's not just that they take the time at the end of the year to make sure it's right. They really go through extensive process monthly. Monthly, you are provided with a board secretary's report, which contains financial data of the major funds. And you really can take a lot of comfort in knowing that the financial data that you receive is accurate, which is important. I mean, you get budget transfers. Do I have enough money for this program that we want to do during the year? Comes budget time, you need to have good confidence that the financial data that the business office is providing you is accurate. And what we found during our testing, it is accurate, and it's highly accurate. We did have one adjusting journal entry that we proposed. It's related to, and I'll get down to a little bit more about it, is GASB 68, which was a new standard. And really the reason why the entry had to be made was because of the information from the state was very late, which I'll get into. Financial records are in excellent condition. Mr. Crotchfeld went through in great detail, so I won't go back into that. The financial position of the district at June 30, 2015. But I would tell you that I would consider that to be very strong financial position the district's in. So the really exciting things for districts and auditors this year was the implementation of GASB 68, which is the pension standard. Implementing this standard was necessary to rely on information provided by the state. The state of New Jersey's multi-employer cost-sharing pension plans. Without the state being able to provide information, no school district could finish their audits. The state of New Jersey really struggled with this standard. They did not provide this information until November 13th, which is really late. So no school district audits went out before November 13th. Couldn't be done. Because in a lot of respects, the information that was being then reported on in the district's financial statements was very material. So what the standard required school districts and local entities to do was actually record in their financial statements their proportionate share of the net pension liability. So the liability minus the actual assets accumulated by the Division of Pensions for that pension program. And the district's proportionate share for PRS is $36 million. Now, within the financial statements in the CAFR, there's a lot of different measures of what's net position, what's fund balance. There's actually 3 different bases of accounting that kind of flow through the financial statements. So the liability gets reported within the overall government-wide financial statements, which takes a very long view of the district's financial position. Takes into account capital assets, the buildings, the long-term debt. That's where that gets reported. That is not those financial statements that you utilize to plan for the budget. Those are different financial statements within the same report. Also, interestingly, because the state there's another liability that's assumed by the state of New Jersey for the TPF employees, the Teachers Pension Annuity Fund employees. So there's statutory requirements that the state is responsible for that liability. But that also needs to be disclosed in your notes to financial statements. So it's not actually recorded as a liability of the district, but you do need to disclose it. And that amount was a little over $315 million that the states assume that liability on your behalf. It's added to about 10 pages of footnotes to the report. They're extensive. They can be mind-numbing at times. If you need help sleeping at night, I would suggest to go to those pages. I mentioned before, we also issue a report on internal control or financial reporting. Again, that's not an opinion on internal control. It would just be our way of telling you if there was very significant findings. We've reported no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies. The report on compliance, we've issued an unmodified opinion on compliance. The district is spending the money for federal and state programs in accordance with your grant agreements. We found no findings that were required to be reported in accordance with those federal and state grant standards. The other report we issue, which is the smaller one, is the Auditor's Management Report. A lot of the information of how it's provided and how it's presented is dictated by the Department of Education. But it also does provide us an ability to provide the governing body opportunities where improvement can be made. They're not material weaknesses, they're not deficiencies. It's the third bucket of finding. It's these other opportunities for improvement. 2 items that we noted, there could be some improvement as it relates to the review of extraordinary aid application. We found 1 exception. Based on that, the state actually dictates how much we test with that respect, and it's a very high level number of items that we test. Once we found that exception, there really wasn't that many more applications to look at, so we looked at those applications to see if the same finding happened, and it didn't. So it's really 1 out of all those extraordinary aid applications. The second item relates to student activity procedures, and there was a few different bullet points within that finding. But one of the things with student activity funds is that it's decentralized. The district does have probably better controls and better procedures and processes in place than most districts. The board policies as it relates to student activities is probably far more extensive than most school districts. Every school within the district is provided specific forms in which they're required to use to document deposits, as well as checks and expenditures, as well as transfers. And they're also required to provide monthly financial reporting up to the board. So those are pretty extensive controls there that you have. However, when certain funds are decentralized, there certainly is more risk involved that non-compliance could occur. What I would tell you is that the business office internal control structure is, very very good, excellent. You know, the really internal controls are in place and they're strong. And, you know, controls over student activity funds, for the most part, are strong, except with some of these exceptions that we found. And again, because it's decentralized. After we found some of these items that required corrective action, you know, the district didn't wait for us to finish the audit. Administration didn't wait for us to finish the audit and adopt a corrective action plan. They took immediate action to take corrective action then and there, doing site visits. It's my understanding they plan on doing some spot audits early on this year prior to the audit as part of corrective action. So those are our two items that are noted that the district will be required to take corrective action on. And if there's any other questions that the board may have, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Questions? Mr. Phillips?
First of all, Mr. Gannon, I'd like to thank you for the hard work and dedication you do for our audit. And I know that you explained the pension adjustment, but there was a lot more anxiety at the time it was happening because you really didn't know it was going to get done at that time.
Correct.
And I appreciate you following up and giving us that ability that it was going to get done, it was going to get done. That was a nice thing to do. I found your report, your management report, very clear and concise. I appreciate that. And you notified us all that there was only one adjustment, and that was related to the pension, of course.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that all of the adjustments of last year were resolved and they weren't recurring at all.
No, and the adjustments that were last year were very minor as well.
Right.
They were not, and they did not recur.
Did not recur. You mentioned the CAFR report, and you mentioned the idea of the award that we had from CAFR, and it's actually on page 17. It is a nice award, and I appreciate our accounting department being able to get that award. It means a lot for everybody. You also mentioned that there were numbers, but there really are nice information that has nothing to do with numbers.
Absolutely.
If you review the CAFR reports from page 8 to 13, we list the wonderful and accomplishments of our students. And for 5 pages of an audit, I'm surprised that even maybe another district would have 2. But to have 5 is accomplishment of what we really do here in East Brunswick. And I again have to thank Joe, Tara, and Bernie for the cooperation they give you during the audit. Thank you.
You know, just to add on, I mentioned it before, but you know, the time that is dedicated towards that introduction section is far. I wouldn't say no district spent a lot of time on it, or a significant amount of time on it, but your district certainly does make an emphasis to highlight those areas. Again, not just in the business office or the administration, but the students and individual schools, and they really go all out in touting those accomplishments.
Well, when you're proud of accomplishments, you do it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I was going to say Joe, Tara, Bernie. Joe, Tara, Bernie. Thank you again for another very, very boring presentation. That's all it is every year. I don't think it can be overstated how important it is to get an unmodified opinion. That means that the auditor says that there's no issues despite their extensive work, and the award 2 years in a row, also pretty cool. So the public should be comfortable that our money is being well managed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Next is the public hearing regarding the Quality Single Accountability Continuum, known as QSAC Equivalency Application. Dr. Valesky.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. The New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, also known as QSAC, is a system whereby all public school districts in the state are monitored and evaluated. QSAC is designed to be a single comprehensive accountability system that consolidates and incorporates the monitoring requirements of applicable state and federal programs. QSAC is also intended to complement and serve in part to implement federal requirements. Under QSAC, public school districts are evaluated in 5 key component areas: of school district effectiveness. Number 1, instruction and program. Number 2, personnel. Number 3, fiscal management. Number 4, operations. And finally, number 5, governance. To determine the extent to which public school districts are providing a thorough and efficient education, the standards and criteria by which the public school districts are evaluated will assess actual achievement, progress towards proficiency, local capacity to operate without state intervention, and the need for support and assistance provided by the state. Because of our continued high-performing status, we have been offered the opportunity to submit an application for equivalency that will extend East Brunswick's certification as a high-performing district for an additional 3 years without a site visit and review. Tonight, we welcome and encourage public comment on our application. The full context of our most recent CUSAC Statement of Assurance, also known as an SOA, and District Performance Review, also known as a DPR, can be found on the homepage of our website at ebnet.org.
So just to clarify, because of the results we've had in the past, we have been given a pass on the full examination.
Correct.
Very good. Any discussion or any public discussion? This is a public hearing. No one's come prepared to discuss CUSAC. Well, congratulations on a great result, and we're glad that we've got a pass.